opioid epidemic. So we are, yeah.
Yes. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Quick Fix Show. I am Krayzie Bone.
Bum Keith G.
Lottie B.
Cool ass KD.
And it is October 4th, 2016. We right here on the Quick Fix, baby.
Yes.
Welcome back.
Tuesday.
Hey.
Like we said, we're gonna jump right into it because we got some very, very special guests in the building with
Yes,
us.
sir.
And as y'all can see, the uniforms, y'all know what I mean when I say very, very special guests.
It's serious.
Would you gentlemen like to introduce yourselves?
Absolutely. Thanks to entertaining us tonight on the Quick Fix Show. I'm Phil Sanchez, Pasadena Police Department.
Yes, sir.
Boston Gordican, Pasadena Police Department.
That's right.
Man, and we thank you guys for being with us tonight. We know you're very, very
Thank you.
busy. You know what I'm saying, with doing what you do. So it's greatly appreciated. Your presence is greatly appreciated.
Word.
So we just wanted to get you guys down here to talk about, like just some things that's going on within the communities, and I'm sure you're well aware of what's going on around the country, and just trying to get some some dialogue going on as to what can possibly be like a solution to bridge the gap between the communities and the police.
Well, I think that's a fair question, one that is kind of a wicked problem that we're all looking at. But I think before we can start to look at solutions, I think we have to look at how we got here.
Okay.
And from my perspective, some of the reasons that we've ended up in this kind of in this dynamic where our communities that we serve and protect seem to be at odds with the police officers is because there are several social failed systems that are not performing as well as they have in the past. Voskin and I are both products of public school. And back in the day, I think a public school education meant more.
Right.
It was more substantive, and our children that graduated from school were really ready more for life.
Yes.
So I think that dynamic is absent these days, even though our school systems are trying to be very difficult or are trying very hard. It's still a very difficult dynamic. I think some of the other things that add to that, though, in the 1960s, long before the 3 or 4 of you were born, 5 of you were born, the truth is the United States was an industrial state. We used to create our own jobs for our own people, and now we've outsourced those jobs. And so there's a place for the A student and there's a place for the F student,
Right.
but there's no place for anybody in between. So I think that how we got here is that we eliminated those jobs, those opportunities. That American dream is more difficult today than it's ever been. And then as we started to become more and more of a promiscuous society, we ended up starting to engage in drug abuse and those kinds of things. And now we have fewer systems that are able to treat those issues. We were talking off air just a moment ago, and I was explaining to one of your colleagues that the truth of the matter is we have a heroin and synthetic opioid epidemic that is headed our way now. We have young people in our streets that are dealing with fentanyl and with prescription
what is that?
narcotics. Fentanyl is a derivative. It's a synthetic opioid. It's used with cancer patients. So it's with terminally ill patients. It is some of the strongest synthetic opioids that we can make.
I saw a video on Facebook today, and it was so disturbing because even though everybody was standing around like videotaping them or whatever, there was a guy that was literally passed out backwards.
Yeah.
His body was in a full arch over a bench, and he had his phone in his hand, and I swear I was like, dude, this guy looks like he's dead. But somebody came and checked; he did have a pulse. And then there was another lady passed out in a frog position on her stomach, and her face was just pressed to the curb. She was on the curb. The car was parked. No one was in the car.
Are you serious?
Yeah, this was today on Facebook, and people were just like, "Oh my God," and everybody was cracking jokes like they must be on that, and I've noticed a lot of videos on Facebook where people are like out of their mind and zombied out, and and that's why it's like I knew there was some synthetic stuff floating around, but it's just like that's very scary.
And the synthetic opioids are a little bit more difficult to come by, and so some of our young people are turning back to heroin, organic opioids, so that they can.
Is that
use those
lean?
as well.
Is that the same thing as the lean liquid? The
Nah,
syrup?
lean is the stuff you sip on. It's the little sip. I'll give you a little.
Yeah.
No, they say that
lesson.
the lean is heroin. It's the same thing.
No, the lean is the syrup. It's the cough syrup with codeine.
Yeah, so
Oh.
that's lean is kind of the I guess one of the.
Not that I
So
know.
how do you tackle that when you're approached with that as a police officer? Like, you know what I mean? Like that has to be you're not dealing with the person, you're dealing with the drug.
Absolutely.
And
Let's get back to that question though, because I think the question that's still kind of on the table is how did we get here?
Oh,
And
sorry.
no, I think that's important though. So I think that there are some of those kind of failed societal systems that have kind of contributed to this dynamic. And then the truth of the matter is there's some bad police officers, right?
Right.
So despite psychiatric testing, despite
Right.
a very comprehensive background package, beside those kinds of things, the truth is that we get folks that the evil lives in their heart, and that's hard to vet out. And sometimes they are out there and they abuse their authority and those kinds of things as well. So I'm not blind to that dynamic.
Yeah,
And so I think one of the other things that is hugely important, I think we all recognize, is that we all have our implicit biases, right? So there's bias about the police officers. There are police officers' bias about our communities. There's a black, brown, Armenian, Asian, whatever the case is. We have this folklore in our families, these discussions that occur around the dinner room table about, well, son, this is what happened to me. I got stopped by the police, and this is the kind of stuff. And it's not meant to be evil. It's not meant to be difficult, but the child has saturated
That
with
puts that into your mind.
And
you
so
know what I'm
now
saying?
it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So my dad and my granddad before him, they were all abused and they were all mistreated, and now I expect I'll be mistreated as well.
Yep.
Typically in an enforcement stop, if Voskin and I stopped one of you, I have my implicit bias towards you, you towards me, and the people passing by have the implicit bias towards all of us about what's going on in that dynamic.
yeah.
So I think that those are some of the main contributors, at least from my perspective. We need a better educational system. We need a more affordable system. We need more affordable housing. We need more jobs. We need better mental health care. We need those kinds of things, and we need to address our own implicit bias. I think it's in November. All 383 employees that I have will be going through implicit bias training. I think that's important. They recognize
Is that like
those
a
things.
psychological examination of their?
It's mainly going to be dialogue, but we're bringing in certified instructors, and we have our own instructors
so
as
that
well.
you can spot those tendencies before they hit the beat, or what?
Well, no, mainly so that we recognize our own frailties and our own obstacles, so that we can recognize what they are, set them aside, and then have a greater appreciation for culture diversity, for gender diversity, for those kinds of things that make up our society every day. So I think that those are, again, some of the kind of baseline factors. There are more, of course, but at the interest of time, maybe we can move on to part of the solution. I think part of the solution is that our police department needs to look like our community. Yeah, so in Pasadena, I will tell you that we are a very diverse organization. We're 31% gender. We have women. 31% of our workforce are women.
That's great.
And at the highest levels of the organization. So one of my female commanders, Cheryl Moody, she's the first African-American woman at that level in the history of our organization. Voskin Gordikian is a first-generation immigrant. He's the son of an immigrant man, born and raised and educated right in Pasadena. We have black men and black women, Latino men and women, Armenian men and women, fewer than I want, but we are a diverse community. In fact, in the days after Ferguson, what the Associated Press shared is that when they did this kind of national quick study, that Pasadena was quote, one of the most diverse, among the most diverse agencies in the nation. So diversity is important because it helps us look like our community. I think the other thing is education.
Yes.
I have about 240 officers or so, and the vast majority of those officers have some kind of advanced degree. A bachelor's, a master's, a PhD, or a JD. These are not stupid people. These are people that could go work for a Fortune 500 company tomorrow. We have entrepreneurs that are in technology, and they run the gamut on their abilities and their skills. We have musicians, and we have econ majors, and we have folks that are trained in terrorism.
You
and
guys
on
have
and
great
on.
Christmas parties.
Yeah, we have a great Christmas party too, that's for sure. We even have a couple of chefs on the department that cook for the show.
I'm surprised.
Exceptional people. So Jason Clausen, if you're listening, there's a shout out for your ability to cook and to be a wonderful chef. But my point is that like all of us, like people, when I take my uniform off, I'm as brown as the next brown man.
Right.
And when you take your clothes off, you're as black as the next black people that you might listen
I'm
to.
not as black
I'm
as
actually
Steve.
like,
Yeah.
I'm a
Yeah.
lot, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm
Yeah,
kind of
well,
like,
whatever that
I'm
might be.
paper bag brown, like,
You got to excuse the delay.
So it's all good. And my point is that as profound as this show is, it doesn't define you. It's not who you are. It is a product of what you deliver. But at the end of the day, I think that what we need to do is we need to have a greater respect for one another. Voskin and I this weekend were at the African American Young Males Conference at Pasadena City College, PCC.
Okay.
And we had the opportunity to listen to a young African American man. His name is Brown, Mr. Brown. Extraordinary speaker, young, from the heart, pure, unvarnished. And what he said was Aretha Franklin sang about the cure to all that ails mankind 30 years ago when she sang about respect. And when you start to think about how simple that approach is, it is at least part of the dynamic that we need to look at
Yes.
when we're looking about solving the issues that are in front of us.
usually the solutions
And-
are usually simple.
And that's from
You know, it's
and
like-
that's from all sides too. Also, I'm sorry. All sides need to have that same respect. So when like if the patrol officers is rolling anything, I understand because everybody been on the corner probably in this room, and like cops roll out, you see how we look at them, and you see how sometimes that could agitate a cop if he come through every day and we look at him like this, and I can see how it agitate us when the cop come through and he looking at us that same type of way. But without respect, at least a little level of being able to have conversation like, hey man, I'm not targeting you.
Right.
I'm trying to, information. This is my beat. I'm going to walk around because back in the days, it used to really be like that. You had the beat cops walking around. They knew everybody in the neighborhood. They see a kid out of pocket, they probably whip his ass too a little bit maybe and
Right.
send him home or something like that, and it'd be okay. You know what I'm saying? Hey, boy, you better get up there. Y'all cut that out. It's like that because the community had, people they can trust in the neighborhood. But when it went to
Rapid response.
I cannot trust this people
Yeah.
to, and I'm kind of wondering how that relationship kind of got with us, or why did we let go?
Because we would need to go back to the Gomer Pyle days.
We're all people. We all got. At the end of the day, everybody want to go home. At the end of the day, everybody, even the kids,
Yeah,
everybody want to go
definitely.
home. So I mean, how to get to the point, and not for you guys, but I'm saying how to get to a point where it's like we can't talk to each other. We see them and be like, oh, they're not working for us and this and that. They're working for the other ones. How do we even try to get it back to the point where it's like, hey, what's happening, officer? I didn't just baked a little cup of chicken. I thought I wanted to bring y'all something real quick. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Or you didn't come and got drunk Otis
Just
from
like
the
you
couch
said.
and he's
Right.
drunk. You know what I'm saying? Took him
But
to
like
jail.
you said, respect.
Right.
That's all in the respect. You know.
I think it does also start with shows like this one, where you invite government officials in, police departments, whatever the case might be, mental health specialists, educational specialists,
Yes.
and we start to dialogue. But there has to be more than dialogue.
Yes.
We will galvanize around a shooting.
Yes.
We will galvanize around black on black crime
Yeah.
or brown on brown crime. But then what is the end state of that galvanization? What do we do with that?
I would like to
That's
say that
That's real.
I think that if there was a way for some form of purification of the people on the force that might tend to have tendencies or issues with people of other races, or when every now, I don't know if you guys do evaluations every now and then with officers and just check in on them and see where their head's at and so forth, because the thing is this: I feel like if everyone on the force is about that life, as far as being a part of their community, building the bond, building the respect and so forth, then it shouldn't be as, maybe I'm just delusional, but I don't feel like it should be as complex to create situations and scenarios and events and things like that can work, that can solve those issues. But the problem is, like you said, the bad cops. Because you can feel it when you meet a bad cop. You can, you just.
Is there a protocol for
No,
that?
I haven't.
Well, I
when
think
they
that's
get
I think that's a
warning?
great observation. First of all, I can speak that there is a small minority of bad police officers, low frequency, high
Small?
impact. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's just them few bad ones. It's
But-
like, it's
right,
But
like
them
the-
few bad ones seem like they make a lot of noise.
They do,
And I
because
see
that's
them
their whole motive,
often.
their whole intention is to just, you know what I mean? It's almost like sharks in the water. Like when you see them riding down the street, you're like, oh my God, there's a shark. It's like
Yeah.
swimming, you know what I
Well,
mean?
if you put that into the context of how many hundreds of thousands of calls law enforcement officers respond to nationally, And there's very few use of force incidences. There are very few lethal encounters. There are very few of those kind of low frequency, high dynamic kind of things. But I think that you raise a good point. Officers, at least in the Pasadena Police Department, I think we're one of the best agencies in the nation. I really believe that in my heart. The officers receive an annual evaluation. The officers are accountable to the public for policy violations and for their conduct, and we have a very robust internal affairs component that does the investigation. I think that's one of the questions: am I the final authority in discipline? And we can get to that in a moment. But we have a very robust internal investigations, internal affairs, as you might see, kind of depicted on the movie screen, are not always the most
I seen
popular
it before.
officers, right?
Yeah.
So,
Lethal weapon.
but but the interesting part about it is that the sanctions and the controls and the expectations can't exclusively be placed on law enforcement, right? So there needs to be accountability in our community across the board. So if we have a youngin that is disrespectful to a law enforcement officer and the parent finds out about that, there's some expectation, like it used to be, that the parent would get involved and say, hey, that's not appropriate that you talk to your adult or you talk to the law enforcement, you talk to those kinds of ways. Kind of to demystify what cops do, because at the end of the day, we all have the same color blood, we all have the same organs, we all, are of that same, orientation, albeit, different cultures and different experiences. But the accountability can't be placed just on law enforcement.
No.
It's got to be across the board.
No, yeah, I mean, listen,
that's-
we've all encountered people where it's like, dang, man, like what?
Hey, I told my wife the other day, and somebody had told me that. I said, you know what? If it's 11 o'clock at night, if it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm gonna open my door like this. How you doing? If it's 11 o'clock at night, I'm answering my door first as a potential threat to me. You know what I'm saying? So I'm on kind of guard on the reels. So I know how you guys got to come for, like if it's a thing going down, y'all got to come. Y'all ain't come to make, hey, what's going on, buddy? That's not the system first,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's got to be. It's got lost between a couple of bad ones, as we've been saying and stuff like that too. And it's bad people in everybody's community.
Right.
The gangster side, whatever side it is, it's just like some unfair kind of situation. So it does take a multiple of things to get this thing back on track. It ain't just you guys, even though I was gonna say, and I'll be quiet after this, but
No, he won't.
you
No,
kind
he
of like
won't.
you kind of like the
He's
quarterback
wrong.
though.
He already knows
You know what
you
I'm
did. No,
saying?
no.
You're kind of like the quarterback with this. If the game is if it's good, Chief looks good. If the hellhounds is out of pocket, or what the people call sometimes, it's on you too. You know what I'm saying? Then they'll remove one, put them into another place, and it seems like sometimes it's like, okay, the police that are the guards stay the same, the people up stay the same. They just remove the police chief, and it seems like that appeases the people.
Right.
What do you think about that?
Well, I think if you can make systemic change in any organization, then it doesn't matter who the chief is, because the culture
Yeah.
lives. But that can cut both ways, right? If the chief is rogue and independent of accountability, then the officers are going to take on that persona. If the person walks with a swagger, if they think that no, it's all about policing,
Okay.
it's not about
Okay.
community and those kinds of things, then an organization can take on that sense. I think the opposite is true. If the chief holds his or her people accountable, if there's sanction for the officers for misconduct, if there's appropriate policies and contemporary procedures and stuff where the officers can do their job, then I think that that's reflective in the workforce as well. I think we're getting ready for break, but before we do, I'd like to just comment about our own internal mechanisms in the Pasadena Police Department. And I recognize this is in the context of an evolving story. But for the last 3 or 4 years, and I've been chief there about 7 years, so for the last almost 7 years now, one of the metrics that we measure performance by is how many times we use force.
Okay.
Right? So last year, mid-year, we were using force 0.46% of the time, less than 0.5%.
That's good.
Now, we arrested 8,700 people last year that went through our
Wow.
jail.
Damn.
Now, that's people that the California Highway Patrol brought by, there's people that we arrested, that was people that turned themselves in, that was all that stuff. The year before, I think it was 0.52% of the use of force. So my point is that we're using force prudently. Now, any force is difficult. There's no doubt about that. And we have to look at it when it's used, how it's used, and who's using it.
Okay.
I was asked recently by a community member, Chief, is there a situation where no force would be used? And the answer to that is yes. And as long as the person's complying, there will be no force. But
Yeah, that's what I wanted
makes
to
it
ask
difficult,
you.
right?
We'll get into that. We come
Yeah.
back to complying.
Yeah,
Let's
I
go.
wanted to
We
ask
need
you
have
about that, but
That's
well,
good
That's a heavy
breakdown
word.
too, man.
Everybody
Well,
stay
wait.
tuned. Everybody stay tuned. Y'all tuned into the Quick Fix. We have some very good conversation going on.
Very
Stay tuned.
good.
We will be right back. Yes, welcome back to the Quick Fix Show, y'all. I'm Krayzie Bone.
Bum Keith G.
Lottie B.
Oh, what happened? Oh, Katie.
It's cool ass.
Cool ass Katie.
We're back in the building.
I'm catering.
Having some good conversation, Lottie. I believe you have
Okay, yeah.
Chilling with Pasadena's
Okay,
finest.
so I do have a question. I have two questions, if you don't mind. So the first question I want to know is, you were talking about the perception has to be, of course, with the parents, with the children as well, just not with the police officers, because I'm a mother, of course, of a a son, 15, 16-year-old son. And my first question is, what do we tell our children? Because a lot of our children are getting their own perception from the things that they see on television. And so, I hear my son say something like, when he sees the cops, oh, Mom, keep driving, like, we don't want to get shot, and it's sad. It breaks my heart because I don't know what to tell him. I don't know what you guys are doing, because it's not really about us per se. It's about our children. They're our generation, and we don't want them growing up afraid. My second question, so that's my first question. You're a smart man. I know you got both of these. My second question is about complying. So me and Cray, Keith, Katie, every time we watch these videos and we see things that are happening, we always say that the person is complying, or if they're not complying, we go, why didn't they just comply? So what do you guys do when someone basically is not complying?
And how do you define not complying?
Yeah, and how do you define not complying? Because some people will think they're complying just because they're talking crazy, but they're not any danger. You know what I mean?
Right. So I think the first question about what as a parent, what can you do? Voskin and I both have children as well, and it might be different in your home than it is in mine, but there's baseline principles I think that every child can understand about respect and about engagement and looking somebody in the eye when you're talking to them, regardless of the authoritative figure. You all remember what it was like when you went to the principal's office, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of like looking around and stuff, but once you got there and talking to the principal and stuff, you recognized, hey, this cat's all right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you went on with the dialogue, and you had to, do your time in the shed if you got in trouble or whatever the reason was. But I think more than that, parents have to be wholly committed, particularly for our young men. Now, I have 4 children. I have daughters that are twins, and I have 2 sons. And I will tell you, without any disrespect to my sons, my daughters learned a lot quicker than my sons.
Because women are smarter than men. That's
Well,
what we
I
say
We
all
mature a
the
lot
time.
faster.
Be that
Yeah.
as it
I've been
may,
saying
right?
this for
So
a
the
long
truth is
time.
that the parents have to stay on their children consistently about communicate the message. And I think also the aim is to replace fear with knowledge so that they can act appropriately when they engage law enforcement. Pasadena Police Department, we have a program. It's called the Law in You.
Okay.
And it's in conjunction with NOBLE, the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Leaders. And what we do is we meet with NOBLE. I'm a NOBLE member
Okay.
as well. You might think that's odd. I'm a Latino man in a black organization. It's not a black organization. It's an organization that welcomes
People,
diversity and
right.
people. And in that program, Domino Scott Jackson, who's one of our NOBLE members and Pasadena police officer, we talk to young people just like this. And we role play what it's like for them to meet a Pasadena police
Oh,
officer.
you do?
Yes, ma'am. And so I think that's important so that you can
Okay.
get involved in those kinds of things. And we're not unique. The Los Angeles Police Department does this. LA County Sheriff's Department does this. All these agencies do this. But what surprises me is as parents, we're not really aware of what resources are available to us. One of the programs that I'm so very proud of is our Explorer program. Young Explorer men and women that are associated with the Boy Scout of America, we're not trying to make them cops. We're trying to give them the attributes of education and academic support. And oftentimes, frankly, I have to tell you folks, oftentimes we're the one meal they get is when we're providing that meal for our young people. And you look at my Explorer post, I have almost 50 young people in there, run by Sergeant Glenn Thompson and my Explorer advisors. That the truth is they are some of the most diverse and challenged young men and women in my community. I have blacks, I have browns, I have a couple of white young people in the course, but the truth is, at the end of the day, we're trying to give them skills to go on. So I would say that the more that you can involve your son or your daughter in that dialogue about how to engage police officers, about what programs we offer. We have also a PAL program. Voskin used to be the executive director of PAL. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that, Voskin.
Yeah, tell us about it.
Yeah, sure.
Talk to us, G.
Hey, everybody on Quickfix, what's up?
Hey, where you been?
Had to get that out there. Yeah, no, we have a very robust Police Activities League, or PAL program. We have 150 youth from our community that we engage, on average, about 100 of them every day. We pick them up from school, we bring them to the PAL Center. We have a very good partnership.
You pick them up
with
in a police car?
No, in vans from school. It's a actually
good.
No, but you know,
No, that's a fair point.
no, that's good. Yeah, no. We pick them up in vans that we have, and we have the officers that are the overseers of that program. And what we do is we provide mentoring, tutoring. We give them athletic skills as well, but we engage them for 6 hours on average a day at the PAL Center.
Okay.
But that's 6 hours of that child, boy or girl, isn't at home to their own devices, to be left to their own devices,
Right.
that aren't on our streets, that aren't engaging with the wrong youth that's out
Yeah.
there. They're learning life skills. We have contracts with the culinary school. We teach cooking. We teach robotics. We teach
Robotics,
other
yeah.
forms of engineering. And by and large, 100% of our graduates from the PAL program also graduate high school. Most go on to college. But those are 150 kids that we have in our program yearly that aren't out there doing something negative, that aren't left to their own devices. We're very proud of that.
Let me try to put that program into context. And I've shared this story many, many times. And let me give a shout out to my wife, Deborah, who I appreciate.
Hey, Deborah.
Appreciate all the work that she's doing with PAL and our current directors out there, Roxanne and Ed as well. A few years ago, we took 60 Pasadena children 18 miles southwest of the beach. 50% of those young people had never been to the Pacific Ocean.
I was just about to ask you that. Some of them never probably
See, you
left
need
the
to
hood.
take that on the road.
We
You guys
take
need-
that on the
We
road.
do.
You guys
We
need to
take that on the
all
road.
that on the
That's how
road.
profound that program was. Without that program, our young people would not have put their foot in the Pacific Ocean.
Wow.
And those kinds of things, I think, are extraordinary in a young man's life and
And
a
it
young
was
lady's
it
life.
was a police officer that
Yeah.
showed him that.
Right,
And that
exactly
he'll
right.
always remember
And
that.
that's what kids need.
So I
because
think to
they're
the first
afraid.
question, I think the thing
They're
is
very
that if we
afraid.
can replace fear with knowledge and confidence, how to
And
look
love.
at, and love, how to look a police officer in the eye, how to engage that person, how to know their rights, know your officer, you know what? I don't think that you can search me in the
Now
circumstances.
that's where we go to
I'd
the
like to
complying.
comment. Right.
How? Because sometimes I see people that are saying, "No, I get to do this. I can stay in my car. This and that." And the officer, it seems like they forget they're an officer and they get angry and they operate in their anger with
Right.
that person.
I think those are people that don't know. They're probably mad
I
that
see
the
a-
person might know more than they do, and their pride
But it
kicks
seems
in.
like
and
when
then
you
it's
do that, when
Right.
you say, "Hey, you can't do this," they get upset.
Get
It seems
more
like
angry.
that heightens the cop's anger. So I always tell my son, and I hate that I have to say this, but I'm like, say yes, sir, no, sir, and it's
put
it's
your
tough.
hands on the
'Cause
wheel,
it
both
makes him
hands.
feel
it's-
like he's less than a person because
Well,
he has
it's
to-
kind of funny. I think in that regard, funny, odd. I don't see disrespect in yes or no, sir. I'm the Pasadena police chief. When I met Mr. Keith G. At New Macedonian. Hey Bev, if you're listening, New Macedonian rocks.
Shouts out of the
Yeah, how about Bev?
Hey.
How about that? And pastor and first lady as well.
Oh, yeah.
Sir, yes sir, no sir. That doesn't make me less of a man. That doesn't make me less, respectable to give respect or to receive respect. Respect and love and trust, the three triplets, they're supposed to be treated as an extension of your persona with no expectation that it comes back to you. You're supposed to give it away.
Right.
And then if you're pure of heart and pure of soul, then that will return to you. So that kind of expectation. But I think in the whole notion of encountering law enforcement officers, it's not disrespectful for you to teach your son to say yes or no, sir, because when he goes to school,
Yes,
he
yes.
saher, yes or no,
Yeah,
sir. When he
yeah.
sees
That's
pastor,
true.
he says yes, pastor, no, pastor.
Yeah.
Yes.
When he sees you, yes, mom, no, mom. Those are
Yes.
kind of
Pleasant or
just pleasantries that we're supposed to know. I think I heard it said a long time ago, and I agree. We learn most of our respect in the third grade. You don't
Yes,
need much more
yes.
than that, right? yes, thank you, how you doing, sir, those kinds of things and stuff. So I don't think it's
Yes,
disrespectful.
man, and I feel like that it really just has to be understood. Okay, like so if you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing, you know, if you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing, and you have something you're not supposed to have, and the officers ask you to do something, and you make a move like you're not, you know, not like you're not going to comply, you know, that officer doesn't know what you have, you know, and I can understand those situations, you know, blowing up rather fast, you know, so because of, so if you're a criminal and you're making these actions, say like if you have a gun on you and you're making these actions to where like you're gonna use this gun, you have to know that you're putting
But then there was the
yourself.
whole situation with the
You
guy
have to
that
know
was.
that you're putting yourself in this, because if I was a gun owner and somebody like broke in my house and they had a gun and I got to mine first, I'm definitely going to act first before that person gets me.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I can
Well, what
I
about
can
when
understand
they
that.
don't have?
No, what about when they're doing when a person gets pulled over and it's like, show me your registration. I'm going for my registration.
Yeah, and you get
Pow.
shot.
You know what I'm
What's
saying?
that?
And it's like
Right.
it's kind of that's the
So
part that
those-
makes it so.
Right, those are difficult.
Yeah.
There's
You
no
never
doubt
know
about
if
that.
you're
But
gonna
even
run
before
into
you say that,
bad
I
apple.
wonder, are those a build up? You know what I'm saying? Sometimes those are build up from last time.
Right.
The last time dude walked up and just said, "Can I see your eye?" Bloom.
Yeah,
Can I just see a bloom?
right.
So all of a sudden, people are walking. That's how it goes.
No, it's
sometimes
just
on the
cute.
road.
You're
You know what
so
I'm saying? Excuse me for
animated.
being graphic like
No,
that.
no,
but I
it's,
mean,
We love
it's,
it.
it's
so
real.
sometimes a dude will come through and
It's
say, you
real.
know what? Next time before I walk up to a dude's thing, now I'm on edge.
Right.
Let me be a police officer, and I hear about some dudes getting bust on real quick
Right.
before they walk up to the thing.
You know,
I'm
and-
walking up to the thing with my thing kind of on edge a
Right,
little bit.
and I think
I'm not
we-
gonna lie.
I
That's-
think we
would.
should. I think we should be critical of those dynamics. I would ask though that any of those oddities that occur like that, though, I think we need to be patient. As tough as it is, we need to be patient to find out what ultimately or what do the facts say.
Yes.
And then if the officers are accountable, then let's sanction them.
Yes.
Let's have a prosecutor look at them. Let's do those kinds
That
of things
don't work.
that's under the law. But if the officer's not, if he's within policy, she's within the law, those kinds of things, then we need to study it for what it is and learn from that and move on.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the things that I lament a lot, and some people will say it's deflection, and it's not intended to do. It's not intended to be deflection, but we have this discussion in earnest when there's an officer-involved shooting, or a death that occurs when officers are involved. Where's the same dialogue when there's 12,000 homicides of black men annually across these great United States? In
Exactly.
Midwest cities like Chicago,
course, yeah.
sporting some 400 homicides annually. Where's the hue and cry there?
Well, I mean, I
that's
think
true.
that there is
That's probably a little bit too much
dialogue when
hopelessness
I mean
on
that's
that
just
end.
yeah that's crime going on within the city, but you don't expect for the law official who is employed to protect you to be a part of that crime.
Right.
So yeah, black men, Latino men, white men are all killing each other. That's been going on since before time has happened. And, war on drugs and all that. But you didn't expect someone in a uniform who could come and save my life to
That's like
also
a
take my
pastor,
life.
minister, or something coming
right.
up.
Yeah,
supposed
it's kind
to
of
be,
like,
you here to
and
help
it's
me,
getting
and you.
to the point where it's out of control. It's happening more and more, and you guys are doing all these great programs that we didn't even know about, because you know what? When we see you, we think, oh my God, that could have been the cop that shot someone in Louisiana, or I mean, that cop 3,000 miles away is making a bad name for you. You know what I'm saying? So my thing is like, where does the department actually have some type of dialogue? For one, because a lot of these videos I see with these officers, they seem nervous when they get into these situations. I know you guys have drills and you show officers how to handle these situations, but it seems like they get a little nervous when they get in these tense situations, as anyone would.
Yeah, they do, because
they're
you can't
human.
tell me that these cops aren't trained to know how to shoot somebody. I'm just saying.
Or
Like,
they get angry. It seems like they get
why
really
is it?
upset.
Why is it? I just don't understand why it's always lethal. Like, why can't you shoot him in the leg,
Yeah,
shoot him in the
yeah.
arm?
Are they taught to shoot in the leg?
No, they're
No,
taught.
no, they're not, and they're not,
They're not,
and they're
okay.
not taught to shoot to kill either. What they're
Okay.
taught is to shoot at center mass, and they're
Center mass.
Where is that, like in the chest?
torso.
Isn't that
Why?
Right. And that's if you stop and think about how small the hand is, how skinny the legs are,
Wow.
those kinds of things and stuff like that. The last time I looked at it in law enforcement officer-involved shootings, officers don't hit what they're shooting at very often. They actually miss quite a bit. Good, bad, or indifferent, the
Then
truth
they
is,
shouldn't be out. Then
the truth is,
that's that training.
well, it's tough because
Well,
you know,
you're
I won't take
nervous.
up too much airtime, but you might all remember in high school the whole notion of flight or fight. Well, the fancy way of describing it are these physiological effects of stress in lethal environments. What happens to you physiologically? Increased respiration, increased heart rate, decreased cognitive processing, increased primal survival. All this stuff is going on. It's the same way when you sit down. Probably the best example of that is, remember when you were driving and you got in that accident, and then 2 seconds after the accident you went, wow.
Yeah.
Those are the physiological changes that are occurring in your
Yeah.
body.
Yep.
You got pupil dilation, you got auditory exclusion, you got all these
It's a
things that
lot.
are going on, not only for the officer, but for the person that they're engaged against or with. And so it makes it difficult
high
to focus in on accuracy. The officers try, but it's very difficult to do that in these kind of high intensity, low frequency events. I think though, before we get to that event, we have to ask ourselves, how do we arrive there, and then how can we prevent that? You know, there's an interesting dynamic we haven't talked about on the show so far. You know, unlike our brothers and sisters in the fire department, God love what they do. It's simple math. When we show up, when Vaskin and I come to a call, 50% of the people are happy we're there,
Yeah.
and
Right.
50% of the people aren't, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
50% say, thank goodness the police are here,
Yeah,
and the other guy, hey dog,
Yeah,
what are you doing here, right?
Yeah,
Why are you out
hell
here?
yeah.
Why are you in my neighborhood,
Looks
right?
some crazy
Yeah.
looks from across
Exactly.
the street.
And,
Yeah.
and that's because we are the first line of government, probably the most visible representation of government, and the officers are trying to get there to mitigate the problem. Trust me when I tell you, Quickfix. Trust me when I tell you that, and to the listeners, the officer doesn't wake up in the morning and say, "Boy, I hope to go to work and get involved in a shooting. Boy, I hope today is the day."
Well, you don't know that.
You
though.
don't think they do.
You don't.
but
Yeah,
some
that's where them.
may.
Well-
You got them
You don't think,
evaluations.
you don't think so?
Well, we do.
wife at
We
home,
do
the
evaluations.
ladies are crazy.
No, the ladies are spot on, right? Because that's a bold assertion. But I would submit that the evidence of that is that if those officers were there every day, I want to shoot somebody, I want to do that, you would see shootings growth by exponential numbers, right? They would be off the chart because there'd be no sanction, there'd be no.
That kind of is off the charts, though.
Do you think that? Do you
The
think,
bad one.
Well, again, putting it
With
into
the bad one,
context, there are a lot of stops nationally,
Yeah.
and the vast majority don't end up in some kind of
We contact
confrontation.
millions of people nationally, annually,
Right.
millions.
I- yeah.
And if we were sorry.
No.
No.
If we were that ill-intended, or that was our notion, municipal police would have failed 50, 60, 80, 100 years ago. We
Right.
wouldn't be able to police.
Because you guys
our
are, like you
communities.
said, you are the front line
Mhm.
of all of this. Honestly, I don't see any government officials besides y'all or the judge. I ain't went to
And
court.
people, and people, and
I ain't
people
been to
in
court in
certain,
years.
and
Right.
people in our communities that are flustered and frustrated with some of the social environment that they're in, and we are the only form of government that they see.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of people feel as though, everything that's going on with the cops and minorities, especially blacks, and it's like people are starting to feel like the cops are the forefront of a lot of the race, how do I say it? A lot of the racial tension that's
Yeah.
going on, because we're just seeing, a lot of people get gunned down and killed, and it's all looking like it's just the cops.
And it's
just
not. And
the
it's
cops,
not
you know
like
what I
this
mean?
anywhere else. I mean, like. I've spent a lot of time in London, and I always notice I don't even think the police carry guns in a lot of parts of Europe, in Japan. Like they don't. It's just it's
They
not.
ain't got worry. They ain't got time.
It's not.
Right.
It's not
Off the
like
hook, though,
this.
yeah.
It's also a
And-
different cultural dynamic.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
they ain't got
And
a
then
lot
we
of
saw
violence.
in France not long
This is
ago, they have
America.
some of the most strict gun laws.
Yeah.
And then we saw, some of the.
How do you
the-
guys feel about the gun law? Is that
Well, that's a great question. I thank you for asking that. I have my own frustrations with guns, right? So, I think
they're
since
everywhere.
January 1st of this year, in little old Pasadena, California, we've taken off about 160 guns from our streets.
Wow.
Now
Just
we're
this year?
Yeah, just this year alone. About 1,300 guns since 2011.
and where do they go?
There's so many
They're destroyed. After,
Okay.
after they go through the court process and stuff like that, we submit them to the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. A great friend and colleague, Jim McDonald, Sheriff McDonald, I think is doing a great job with his organization big ships turn slow. Law enforcement turns slow, but I think there are some significant leaders in law enforcement community, and they're trying to make differences from the inside out. And remind me to get back to the inside out, because that's an important theme that I want to touch on. But we destroy those guns. But every one of the 160 almost represents a potential lethal encounter with
Yeah,
a
it
police
does.
officer, right?
Yeah.
Because we have a young fella that's armed. And where do they come from? Most recently, we had a burglary where 3 young men kicked in the front door in broad daylight, went into the house, stole a couple of guns, and that's where they
Okay.
get. So
See, and this is where, like, and not to cut you off,
A
but
recycle program.
this is where, like, you know, cops and men and women that go and they fight for us in uniform. This is when that's the 50% where we're so happy that you guys show up, because I think it's, you know, it's a kind of a double-headed sword, because you guys get, you know, looked at on a bad note, but you also do so much good. I mean, you're out there every day fighting people who want to kill you, want to hurt you, you know, so we do understand that, you know, it's a lot.
And I appreciate that support. I would say I'm hearing noise or music in our headset, so I think we might be wrapping up. But just
No,
quickly,
he just ain't
It's
focused.
called a
maybe just
clue.
quickly for the quick fix audience, changing from the inside out. Let me hire you. Let me hire you as a Pasadena police officer. Let me pay you $76,000 a year. And give you an opportunity to change things from the inside
Keith,
Starting.
give him your
Starting.
application right now.
out. So if we're going to make a difference, we're going to have to come together and recognize that there's common ground for us all. We're going to have to improve the educational system and the job
That's
system and
really
the housing
important.
system
Yes.
and the mental health system and the drug abuse system. We're going to have to recognize and listen to the message that's being conveyed. And for those that are conveying the most powerful message, let me say that in my opinion that the message is as important as the delivery.
Yes.
If I'm yelling at you and putting my finger in your face, I'm drowning out the message. You won't hear the message. You'll only be angry at me.
Word.
So let me hire your sons and daughters. Let me hire your nephews and your aunts and your uncles and your family
Or
members.
create volunteer programs for them
We
to come
have
down to
about
your-
170 volunteers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have a
that's
very
awesome.
robust program, but I think we're going to change it from the inside out. It starts at a grassroots level. We need to find our young men and women,
Yes.
minority young men and women particularly, get them into policing, homogenized men and women as well. If that's their calling, it's a vocation. I could have retired a long time ago. I absolutely know that it is a privilege to serve you and serve this community.
That's what's up.
And I hope the good Lord lets me do it for a
We
few
need
more
And
more.
we
years.
pray
We
that-
need
we
all
pray
of
for you
these
as
chiefs
well.
to be like
Yes.
this.
Or, hey,
you know?
I happen to just know him, so I got an inside eye. This
awesome.
man's a believer, so it's a different kind of thing. I don't know what goes on where your
Yes.
chief of police is, you know what I'm saying, something like that. But I spend a lot of time in Pasadena, California, and I do hope that a lot of other places have a policeman governing things like
Yes.
this and have a mind state and knows he got to answer to somebody else besides just
Yep.
like somebody that's going to fire him. You
Yep.
know what I'm
Indeed.
saying? That makes the whole difference, G.
Yep.
Yes, indeed, man. And we thank you guys for taking time out of your
Thank
busy,
you.
busy
And,
day, man.
Quick Fix audience, be safe, be well.
Yes,
and
indeed.
God bless you all. Thank
God
you.
bless you
Indeed,
too.
y'all.
Thank you.
Y'all stay tuned. We'll be back. Y'all watching the Quick Fix. We will be
Yeah.
back.
Man, that's what it do, man.